sitting in the street, shooting up out in the open, and that far from being a solution, all it's done is put out in the open some really, really ugly behavior by individuals.
Well, and this is the cop in me speaking, but it's also the citizen in me speaking, where you've got aggressive panhandling, you've got urinating and defecating in people's doorways, you've got the kind of behavior that is oftentimes associated with illicit trafficking and illicit use of drugs. The police need to take care of business. The community and the police need to get together and make sure that that behavior does not occur. That was happening, by the way, in Switzerland, in Zurich. I was on the O'Reilly Factor shortly after my book came out, and Mr. O'Reilly suggested that I was living in a fairyland and that he had been to so-called Needle Park in Zurich and had seen firsthand essentially what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It was a horrible, failed social experiment, but the Swiss were trying to get the junkies off of their streets and into a contained area. And they said essentially, go to what was not the Chamber of Commerce that named it Needle Park, of course, but once they created this space in a public park, all hell broke loose, and it was a mistake. They recognized that mistake within a very short period of time, and what they did next was really counterintuitive and shocking to a lot of people. They brought the heroin addicts into a supervised, hygienic medical facility, and they dosed the addicts. What happened within about an 18-month period is a sharp fall in crime, especially predatory crime, HIV, AIDS, hepatitis C. Many of these heroin addicts actually, once they reached maintenance levels, did not have to steal or prostitute themselves or sell drugs in order to finance their next fix, actually found employment, started paying taxes. That's now about a 12 to 15-year-old study. And it really does show that if we take, it's bold. It takes imagination. It takes some guts.
Well, and it's never going to happen either because no politician. And I'm really intrigued with this, and I don't think anybody should be in jail for personal possession, drug use. I just unless there's some other crime attached to it, I just don't think anybody should be in jail for that. But no president's ever going to touch this. I mean, Gil Kurlikowski is President Obama's drug czar, and he said just a couple weeks ago that the word legalization is not in the president's vocabulary.
And he was talking only of marijuana, which is 100 million people in this country have tried marijuana at least once. It's not a gateway drug. I'm not advocating, I'm not condoning, I'm certainly not promoting, but what I want to say is 100 million people have tried that drug. Not a single overdose death in the history of marijuana-only use. Many, many deaths from, the toxicity associated with alcohol and binge drinking and the like. So it's a much, much safer drug than alcohol, and I couldn't agree more that it's foolish, I think, to say that marijuana belongs with heroin in a Schedule I drug.
But why are you pursuing a futile cause? Because you know that no president's ever going to dare utter those words that he's for legalization.
I don't think this president will. I don't think his successor or perhaps that successor's successor will. But like all other social and political movements, if you think you've got not a monopoly on wisdom and truth, but at least an inkling that the public health model would be a far better system than prohibition and the drug war, that we could actually increase drug treatment dramatically if we were to convert some of the funds being used now on enforcement. And I couldn't agree with you more that you take any drug, including alcohol, and you drive impaired, you furnish to a kid, you abuse a spouse, you rob a bank, you go to jail.
That's right, yeah. But prosecute the crime attached to it. If somebody's sitting in their home doing a line of cocaine, it doesn't affect anybody except them, and there's no justification for putting that person in jail, in my view.
Well, I will say, if it affects their family, if it causes them to neglect their children, then they should pay a price for that. They should also receive treatment, obviously, because you don't want them reoffending.
Right. I gotcha. Hey, it's a fascinating conversation, and I will see what all my listeners think about this. Former Seattle Police Chief Norm Stamper. The organization is Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and the website is copssaylegalizedrugs.com. Norm, really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks so much.
Likewise, Dorian, thank you.
All right, there you go. So I told the chief that I'm going to see what you think about it. So let's start a thinking. Okay, give me a call. You've heard former Chief Stamper's arguments in favor of drug legalization, not just decriminalization, all drugs. What do you say? 888-97-3 Cairo, 888-97-3-5476. We will get to your... And one more note. A lot of states are looking at legalizing marijuana just because they're in such desperate financial straits, and they could make tax money off of it. All right, what do you think of the conversation we just had? 888-97-3 Cairo. Your phone calls are up next. All right, a bunch of people are in favor of legalizing drugs. Many are cynical, thinking it's just a tax money grab by the states. All right, let's see what you think. To the phones we go. Dennis in Renton. Hey, Dennis, you're on News Talk 97.3 Cairo FM.
Dory, this is the cure for all that ails this country. You have to look at this at the long-term benefit. If we legalize all the drugs, there is a certain large portion of the political spectrum of this country that will be so stoned in no time at all that they will forget to go to the ballot box. And we will finally be able to take this country back and get it back on track.
Wow. I like the way you think, Dennis.
I mean, this is just, let it go. You know who all the stoners are.
Oh, today's election day.
Yeah. We could do this now. We'd have it by 2010. I guarantee you by 2012, they'd be so stoned, we'll have this country back. And we'll be able to do things right.
Dennis, you are a master strategist. I love it. All right, Dennis, thank you very much for the call. Let's go to Tanya in Ballard. Tanya, you're on News Talk 97.3 Cairo FM.
Hi.
Hey, Tanya.
I, like most people, am pretty passionate about this subject. I personally fall on the line of thinking that it's not a good idea to legalize it for various reasons, of which only one or two I'll share with you. My first point is that I doubt, unless I misheard or didn't hear this, that prescription drugs that are used for recreational purposes will not be legalized, nor should they be. So you're still going to have an underground market.
That's a great question, because he said legalize all drugs. Oh. And what sense would it make for somebody to be able to get LSD legally, but they could not get OxyContin?
Or Vicodin or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, there's tons of them. Yeah.
I would suspect that if you're going to legalize drugs, you would legalize those prescription drugs as well.
Which is a very, very scary path to go down. Marijuana is one thing, organic drugs are another.
Well, but how's that more scary than legalizing heroin? I mean, they're both opiates, and it's just the delivery method that's different.
The incidents that I've seen, from what I understand, is that the death rate of mixing, let's just say Oxy, for example, with alcohol, mixing, I think, can be much, much more dangerous. I think it's also, there's a stigma out there, especially among young people, that the prescription drugs are somehow safer, which, of course, is not true. So those are just two of my points on that.
Okay.
That side of it.
I wish I'd asked him about the prescription drugs. I think that's a great question. Maybe the pharmaceutical companies are behind this. They just want to expand their marketplace. All right, Tanya, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you very much for the call. Let's go to John in Everett. John, you're in News Talk 97.3 Cairo FM.
Oh, man, that last call kind of screwed me up.
Why is that?
I guess you got a point there.
Ooh, I like it. I like that we're so provocative that we're making people think their initial reaction.
Well, mostly I think about pot anyways, being legal.
Yeah.
But, I mean, all drugs, I guess the thing is there's so much money is spent fighting this losing battle that, it seems like they have to do something different because they spend billions and billions, trying to, prevent it. And it doesn't work whatsoever. So, you know,
I'll tell you what my greatest concern is, John. We who coach at the high school level, our athletes sign a code of conduct where they, will not drink alcohol, will not use drugs, and they have to remove themselves from any situation where those things are present. And one thing it does is it gives the kids an excuse when the peer pressure tries to get them to smoke a joint. They can say, no, man, I'll get kicked off my sports team if I get caught. And I just think that keeping drugs illegal gives some kids that barrier. And they say, no, if I get busted, I'm not going to get into the college of my choice. And I'm afraid that it's going to open up. Legalizing will take away that ability for kids to cite that as a reason to not use drugs.
Oh, for heaven's sakes. You people quit making so much sense. Man.
I'm sorry.
With pot, it's one of those things that it definitely, I think it affects people at work. I think when the people are at home or they're relaxing, that kind of thing, because it doesn't affect them the next day so much, you can still perform your job. Now, see, that's my one problem that I have with legalizing pot is that, see, I would never do it at work or want anybody on my job site that's stoned.
Right.
But I don't have any problem with them doing it at home after work and relaxing.
Right. Well,